The space station Horizon Gate floated in the darkness between three star systems. It belonged to no one, which made it perfect for enemies who needed to talk. Sergeant Park Do-hyun stood near a tall window and watched ships arrive from distant worlds. His reflection stared back at him, a tired face, short black hair, and the gray uniform of the United Earth Coalition. Do-hyun had been a soldier for 12 years. He had fought in the Mars riots, survived the colony wars on Europa, and earned enough medals to fill a small box he never opened. Now he was here, babysitting a peace summit between two alien empires that had been killing each other for longer than humans had existed as a species. His communicator buzzed. Sergeant Park, the Valari delegation, arrives in 20 minutes. All security teams to positions. He pushed away from the window and walked through the crowded corridors. Horizon Gate was filled with beings from dozens of worlds. Some had scales, others had too many eyes, and a few seemed to be made of light itself. Humans moved among them, still the newcomers to this galactic stage. Most aliens looked at humans the way adults look at children playing with dangerous toys. Amusing, perhaps, but not to be taken seriously. Do-hyun found his team waiting near the main docking bay. Corporal Yoon Somi leaned against a pillar, her sharp eyes scanning every face that passed. She was young but deadly, with a mouth that got her in trouble and skills that got her out of it. Private Kang Ji-woo sat on a cargo crate, fingers dancing over a portable computer, lost in code and signals. Sergeant Han Eun-ji checked her medical kit for the third time, her gentle face hiding the iron will of someone who had kept soldiers alive in impossible conditions. The Valari princess is on the arriving ship, Somi said without looking at Do-hyun. Third in line to their throne. Apparently very important. Everyone here is very important, Do-hyun replied. That is why we are here. We are here because nobody trusts anybody, Somi said. And they need humans to stand in the middle, because we are too young and stupid to have enemies yet. Do-hyun did not argue. She was right. The docking bay doors opened with a hiss of pressurized air. The Valari ship had connected, and now its passengers emerged into the station. Do-hyun had seen Valari before, but never this many, and never dressed like this. They were tall, nearly 7 feet, with silver-blue skin that seemed to glow faintly from within. Their eyes were large and dark, like pools of night sky, and they moved with a grace that made every other species look clumsy. They wore robes of flowing white and gold, and their faces carried the calm expression of people who had seen empires rise and fall. At the center of the group walked Princess Ilara. She was younger than the others, though young for a Valari still meant centuries old. Her silver hair fell past her shoulders, decorated with tiny crystals that caught the light. Her robes were simpler than her guards, but somehow more elegant. She walked with her head high, her dark eyes taking in everything around her. For a moment, those eyes passed over Do-hyun. He felt the weight of her gaze, ancient and curious, before it moved on. He was furniture to her, a necessary part of the scenery. He did not mind. He preferred it that way. The Valari delegation swept through the bay and into the station proper. Do-hyun's team fell into position, watching, waiting. Their job was simple. Keep the peace. Make sure nobody killed anybody. Let the diplomats talk until they found words that could end a war. The Tauran Confederacy arrived an hour later. They were different from the Valari in every way. Where the Valari were tall and graceful, the Taurans were broad and powerful, with rough gray skin and 4 arms each. They wore practical armor instead of flowing robes, and their faces showed every emotion clearly. Right now, those faces showed distrust and barely controlled anger. The war between the Valari Empire and the Tauran Confederacy had lasted for 300 years. Millions had died on both sides. Whole planets had been burned to ash. And now, somehow, they were supposed to sit in a room and make peace. Do-hyun watched the Tauran delegation pass. Their leader, a massive warrior named General Toruk, glanced at the human soldiers with something like contempt. To him, humans were insects, briefly annoying, easily crushed. The first day of the summit was filled with ceremonies. Both sides exchanged formal greetings according to traditions older than human civilization. Do-hyun stood at his post for hours, watching without truly seeing, his mind wandering to memories he tried to keep buried. He thought about his sister back on Earth, about the small apartment in Busan where he grew up, about the ocean that he had not seen in 7 years. He wondered if he would ever see it again, or if he would die on some distant station, surrounded by aliens who would forget his name before his body was cold. "You are thinking too loud," Unji said quietly, appearing beside him. "I can hear it from across the room." "Just tired," Do-hyun said. "We are all tired. But something is wrong here. Can you feel it? Read here." "We hear Fop Dil Si." Do-hyun nodded slowly. He could feel it. The Valari were tense beneath their calm masks. The Taurans were angry, but that was normal. No. The tension came from somewhere else, from the shadows at the edges of the room, from the servants and minor officials who moved too carefully. "Someone does not want this peace to happen," Unji said. "Someone never does," Do-hyun replied. That night, there was a ceremonial dinner. Both delegations sat at a long table, eating food they could barely stomach, speaking words they did not mean. Princess Ilara sat near the center, her face a perfect mask of diplomatic interest. Do-hyun was stationed near a service corridor, officially off-duty but unable to leave. He watched the dinner from the shadows, his instincts screaming that something was wrong. He saw the servant first, a Tauran in simple clothes, carrying a tray of drinks. But Taurans did not serve at tables. They considered it beneath them. And this one moved wrong. Too smooth. Too focused. The servant's hand went beneath the tray. Do-hyun was already moving. Time slowed down. The servant pulled out a blade that glowed with sick green light. The blade rose, aimed at Princess Ilara's back. Guards shouted, but they were too far away. Do-hyun was not. He threw himself forward, his body crashing between the blade and the princess. He felt the weapon punch through his shoulder, felt cold fire spread through his veins, but he also felt the assassin stagger from the impact. He heard Somi's gun bark once, sharp and final. Then the floor rushed up to meet him, and the world went dark. Princess Ilara had seen death before. She had lived for 400 years, and in that time, she had watched stars die and empires crumble. She had stood at the bedside of her grandmother, the old empress. As the ancient woman took her final breath, she had walked through the ruins of cities destroyed by Tauran weapons, but she had never seen someone die for her. The moment played again and again in her mind. The flash of green light, the human soldier appearing from nowhere, his body slamming into hers, pushing her aside. The wet sound of the blade entering flesh. The look on his face, not fear, not regret, just fierce determination. Then he fell, and there was blood everywhere. The next few minutes were chaos. Guards swarmed around her, pulling her away from danger. Somi fired her weapon once, and the assassin collapsed. People screamed and shouted in a dozen languages. The dinner hall became a storm of bodies and noise. But Ilara could not stop staring at the human on the floor. His name was Park Do-hyun. She learned this later, after the chaos settled, after the security teams swept the station for more threats, after the diplomats retreated to their quarters to argue about what had happened. She learned that he was a sergeant in the human military, that he had served for 12 years, that he had no special importance to anyone, and yet he had jumped in front of a blade meant for her heart. The poison on the blade was called Valari's Tears. It was an old weapon, designed specifically to kill her kind. The poison attacked Valari blood cells, turning them into acid that ate the body from within. Death came slowly and painfully, over 3 days of agony. But Do-hyun was not Valari. His human body reacted differently to the poison. It still burned through his veins, still caused terrible pain. But it did not multiply. like it would in Valari blood. The human medics and Valari healers worked together, using techniques from both their worlds, and somehow, they kept him alive. Ilara visited the medical bay the next morning. She told herself it was her duty as the one he had saved. She told herself it was proper diplomatic behavior. But the truth was simpler. She could not stay away. He lay on a bed too small for him, surrounded by machines that beeped and hummed. His face was pale, covered in sweat, and his breathing came in short, painful gasps. The wound on his shoulder was wrapped in silver bandages that glowed with Valari healing light. "He will live," said the chief healer, a Valari woman named Matron Cell. But it was close. Another hour, and the poison would have reached his heart. "Why did he do it?" Ilara asked. She did not realize she had spoken aloud until Matron Cell answered. "That is a question for him, Princess. When he wakes." Ilara sat beside his bed for 3 hours, watching him breathe. She did not know why she stayed. She had duties, responsibilities, a peace summit that hung by a thread, but she could not bring herself to leave. She thought about the moment again. The way he moved without hesitation. The way his eyes never showed fear. Humans lived such short lives. Barely a century if they were lucky. Every year was precious to them. Every moment irreplaceable. And this man had thrown his life away for someone he did not know. In 400 years, Ilara had never seen anything so foolish or so brave. He woke near sunset, station time. His eyes opened slowly, confused and unfocused. He tried to sit up and groaned in pain. "Do not move," Ilara said, and he froze at the sound of her voice. His eyes found her, and for a moment he just stared. Then something like embarrassment crossed his face, and he tried to sit up again. "Your Highness. You should not be." "I said do not move," Ilara repeated. And this time her voice carried the weight of command that she rarely used. Do-hyun stopped moving. "The poison is still leaving your body," she continued. "The healers say you need rest. Lots of rest." "The summit," Do-hyun said. "What happened? Are you safe?" The summit continues. "I am safe. The assassin is dead." Ilara paused. "Because of you." Do-hyun looked away. "I was just doing my job. Your job was to guard the neutral zones. I was not your responsibility. Everyone is my responsibility." Ilara studied him carefully. He was not handsome by Valari standards. Too rough, too weathered, with scars on his hands and shadows under his eyes. But there was something in his face that she could not look away from. A weariness that came from seeing too much, mixed with a stubborn light that refused to die. "Do you know what you have done?" she asked quietly. Do-hyun looked back at her, confused. "I stopped an assassin. You did more than that." Ilara stood and walked to the window. Outside, stars burned in the eternal darkness. "Among my people, there is an ancient tradition. It is called Veltharon, the life debt." She heard him shift on the bed. "I have heard of it. Then you know what it means. When someone saves your life at the cost of their own safety, a bond is formed. It is not a choice. It is not a suggestion. It is sacred law, older than our empire itself." She turned to face him. "You risked your life for mine. You nearly died to save me. The Veltharon now binds us." Do-hyun's face went pale. "Your Highness, I did not mean to." "It does not matter what you meant. The debt exists." Ilara clasped her hands in front of her, falling into the formal posture she had learned as a child. "Until I repay this debt, or until you release me through an act of equal sacrifice, I am bound to you. My honor, my family's honor, and the honor of the Valari Empire demand that I fulfill this obligation." For a long moment, Do-hyun said nothing. He stared at her with an expression she could not read. Then, Slowly, he shook his head. No, he said. Ilara blinked. I do not accept. You owe me nothing. I did what anyone would have done. No one else moved, Ilara said. The room was full of guards and soldiers and warriors. None of them moved, only you. Then they were slower than me. That is all. I do not want a princess following me around because of some old tradition. I do not want to be part of your politics. Do-hyun's voice was firm, but not disrespectful. Go back to your peace talks. Forget about me. I am nobody. Ilara felt something strange stir in her chest. It took her a moment to recognize it. Surprise. In 400 years, no one had ever told her no. Not like this. Not with such calm certainty. She almost smiled. You do not understand, she said. The Veltherin does not require your acceptance. It exists whether you want it or not. You cannot refuse a truth, simply because it is inconvenient. Watch me, Do-hyun said, and he closed his eyes. I am tired. I need to sleep. When I wake up, I hope this was all a bad dream. Ilara stood there for a moment, looking at this stubborn, impossible human. Then she did something she had not done in decades. She laughed. It was a small sound, quickly controlled, but genuine. Do-hyun opened one eye to look at her. You are very strange, Sergeant Park, she said. Very strange indeed. But the debt remains. Whether you believe in it or not. I will see you again soon. I will. She left the medical bay, her mind spinning with thoughts she could not organize. Behind her, Do-hyun muttered something in Korean that sounded like a curse. The galaxy had just become much more complicated. 3 days after the assassination attempt, Do-hyun was back on his feet. The Valari healing technology was remarkable. What should have taken weeks of recovery happened in hours. But the poison had left its mark. His shoulder ached constantly, and sometimes his vision blurred without warning. He returned to duty because staying in bed was driving him mad. He returned to duty because soldiers did not rest while there was work to do, and mostly, he returned to duty to get away from the strange looks everyone gave him now. The story had spread through the station like fire. The human sergeant who saved the Valari princess. The common soldier who jumped in front of a blade meant for royalty. Some called him a hero. Others called him a fool. The Valari whispered about Veltheran, and the humans whispered about politics. Do-hyun ignored all of it. He just wanted to do his job. But Princess Ilara made that impossible. She appeared at his morning briefing, dressed in simple traveling clothes instead of her ceremonial robes. Her guards stood behind her, looking uncomfortable. The human officers stared at her with wide eyes. I will be accompanying your team today, she announced. Do-hyun set down his coffee cup very slowly. Your Highness, that is not possible. The assassin came from somewhere. Someone on this station helped him. I intend to find out who. Ilara's dark eyes met his. As the target of the attack, I have valuable insight. As a princess of the Empire, I have access to places and information you do not. And as the holder of a Veltheran debt, my place is at your side until that debt is resolved. Your Highness, you may call me Ilara. We are bound now. Do-hyun rubbed his temples. His headache was getting worse. The investigation is not your concern. We have professionals handling it. Yes, I have seen your professionals. They are investigating the Toren delegation, looking for connections to extremist groups. They are wasting their time. Ilara stepped closer, lowering her voice. The assassin used a weapon designed to kill Valari. Such weapons are not easily found. They are relics, kept in secure vaults under heavy guard. No Toren could have obtained one. The room went very quiet. You think it was an inside job? Somi said. Someone from your own people. Ilara did not answer, but her silence was answer enough. Do-hyun studied her face. She hid it well, but he could see the pain there. The thought that someone from her own empire, her own people, had tried to kill her It was eating at her from the inside. He sighed heavily. Fine. You can come. But you follow my orders. You do not take unnecessary risks. And if I tell you to run, you run. Ilara's expression flickered with surprise, then settled into something that might have been respect. Agreed. The investigation took them deep into the station's lower levels, where the service workers lived and the air recyclers hummed constantly. Do-hyun's team moved through narrow corridors, questioning anyone who might have seen something useful. Ilara proved surprisingly helpful. She knew how to read people, how to spot lies hidden behind careful words. She also knew things about the poison, the blade, and Valari politics that no human could have learned from reports. The blade was ceremonial, she explained as they walked. Made for rituals, not combat. Only high-ranking families possess such items. So the assassin had help from Valari nobility, Jiwoo said, tapping on his computer. Someone with access to restricted artifacts. Yes. And someone who wanted war to continue. Ilara's voice was cold. The peace summit threatens many interests. Weapons makers, military commanders, nobles, who profit from conflict. Any of them might have reasons to see me dead. Charming family you have, Somi muttered. Ilara almost smiled. You have no idea. They found their first real clue in a maintenance shaft. Jiwoo's scanners detected traces of the same poison used on the blade, hidden behind a false panel. Someone had stored supplies here. Prepared the weapon. In secret. Recent activity. Jiwoo reported. Within the last week. And look at this communication signals. Encrypted. Sent to a ship that arrived 3 days before the summit. A Velarde ship? Do-hyun asked. Registered to a trading company. But the company is owned by... Jiwoo's voice trailed off. He looked at Ilara with obvious discomfort. Say it, Ilara said quietly. Lord Vaymar. Your uncle. The silence stretched like a wire about to snap. Ilara stood very still, her face completely empty. Do-hyun had seen that look before, on soldiers who had just received news that their families were dead. The look of someone whose world had just shattered. We do not know anything for certain, Unji said gently. This could be a coincidence? Ilara's laugh was bitter. My uncle has opposed this peace summit from the beginning. He commands the largest fleet in the empire. If war continues, his power grows. If peace comes, he becomes irrelevant. She closed her eyes. I did not want to believe it, but I am not surprised. Do-hyun stepped closer to her. He did not know what to say. What words could comfort someone who had just learned that their own blood wanted them dead? We will find the truth, he said finally. Whatever it is. And we will stop anyone who tries to hurt you again. Ilara opened her eyes and looked at him. For a moment, the mask fell away, and he saw the person beneath tired, hurt, and desperately alone. Why? She asked. Why do you care? You do not know me. I am nothing to you. You are someone who needs help. Do-hyun said simply. That is enough. They stood there, in the dim light of the maintenance corridor, surrounded by humming machines and the distant sounds of the station. Something passed between them, wordless, but real. Then Ilara's mask slipped back into place, and she straightened her shoulders. We should continue. If my uncle is involved, he will move quickly to cover his tracks. They returned to the upper levels as the station's artificial night began. Do-hyun's team gathered in a small briefing room, sharing food from ration packs and discussing what they had learned. Ilara sat apart from the group, her eyes distant. Unji brought her a cup of tea, and she accepted it with quiet thanks. She is not what I expected, Somi said quietly to Do-hyun. I thought all Valari were cold and arrogant. She is both of those things, Do-hyun replied. But she is also more. Careful, Sergeant. You are starting to sound like you care. Do-hyun did not answer. But later that night, when he could not sleep, He found himself thinking about the look in Ilara's eyes when she learned about her uncle. The loneliness there. The pain. Humans lived short lives, but they usually had family and friends to share them with. Ilara had lived for centuries, surrounded by politics and duty, and she trusted no one, not even her own blood. Maybe, Do-hyun thought, that was its own kind of tragedy. His shoulder ached. Outside his window, the stars burned in the eternal darkness. Somewhere on the station, a princess sat alone with the knowledge that her uncle had tried to kill her. And somewhere else, a conspiracy continued to grow. 1 week passed. Then 2. The peace summit continued in fits and starts, constantly interrupted by arguments and accusations. The Valari and Taurans blamed each other for the assassination attempt, even as evidence pointed in other directions. Meanwhile, Do-hyun's team continued their quiet investigation, gathering pieces of a puzzle that grew darker with each discovery. And through it all, Ilara stayed. She slept in quarters near the human section, refusing the luxury suites offered to her. She ate human food without complaint, even though Do-hyun saw her grimace at the taste. She attended briefings, helped with research, and slowly became part of the team in ways no one had expected. It was not easy. The first few days were filled with tension and awkward silences. Somi made sharp comments about royal privilege. Ji-woo was too nervous to speak directly to her. Eunji tried to be kind but did not know the right words. And Ilara did not know how to be anything other than a princess. The change began with small things. Somi cut her hand on a broken console, and Ilara bandaged the wound with surprising gentleness. Ji-woo struggled with an encrypted Valari file, and Ilara spent 3 hours helping him crack it. Eunji mentioned that she missed her mother's cooking, and Ilara listened quietly, asking questions about human families and traditions. "You do not have children," Eunji said one evening. Ilara shook her head. "Marriages among the royal family are political arrangements. I refuse to become a bargaining chip. My grandmother allowed me to remain single, much to my uncle's frustration." 400 years alone, Somi said. "That sounds horrible. I was never alone. I had servants, advisors, guards." Ilara paused. "But I did not have this. People who speak to me without calculating advantage. People who argue with me, joke with me, treat me as..." She searched for the word. "As a person." The room went quiet. Do-hyun watched his team exchange glances, something shifting in their eyes. This was not the cold, arrogant princess they had expected. This was someone who had been trapped in a golden cage her entire life. "Well," Somi said finally, "if you want people to argue with you, you came to the right place." Ilara's laugh was small and surprised, but genuine. Something in the room relaxed. From that night on, things were different. The team still called her princess sometimes, but more often they called her Ilara. She learned to appreciate human humor, even when she did not understand it. She told stories about the Valari Empire, its beauty and its darkness, in ways that made it feel real instead of distant. And she watched Do-hyun. He noticed, of course. He noticed the way her eyes followed him during briefings, the way she appeared whenever he was alone. At first, it made him uncomfortable. Then, it made him curious. And finally, it made him concerned. "You should not be here," he told her one night. They stood on an observation deck, watching cargo ships drift past. "The more time you spend with us, the more danger you are in. If your uncle discovers what we know." "If my uncle discovers what we know, we are all in danger," Ilara replied. "At least together, we have a chance. This is not your fight. You saved my life. Your fight is now my fight." She turned to face him, her silver hair catching the starlight. "Why does that bother you so much?" Do-hyun did not answer immediately. He thought about the question, turning it over in his mind. "Because you deserve better," he said finally. You should be living in palaces, shaping the future of your empire, not hiding in service corridors, with a squad of human soldiers. I have lived in palaces for 400 years. They are beautiful prisons. Ilara moved to stand beside him at the window. Do you know what I have learned in these 2 weeks? Your people are remarkable. We are stubborn and reckless. Yes, exactly. She smiled slightly. Valari live for centuries. We plan in generations, think in eras. Every decision is weighed against 1,000 years of consequences. It makes us careful. It makes us wise. She paused. It also makes us cold. We forget how to feel because feelings are temporary, and we are not. Do-hyun looked at her, seeing something new in her ancient eyes. Humans feel everything, Ilara continued. You love fiercely, grieve deeply, fight passionately, all knowing that your time is short. You do not have the luxury of patience, so you act. You take risks that no Valari would consider because you cannot afford to wait. But because in that moment, saving me mattered more than your life. Any soldier would have done the same. No, they would not. I have seen your battle records, Sergeant Park. You have saved 17 people in your career, often at great risk to yourself. You do not value your life properly. Do-hyun felt something twist in his chest. Maybe I just value other lives more. Ilara was quiet for a long moment. Then she did something unexpected. She reached out and took his hand. Her skin was cool, smooth, utterly inhuman. But her grip was warm. That is what makes you dangerous, she said softly. And wonderful. They stood together in silence, watching the stars. Do-hyun did not pull his hand away. The next morning, everything changed. Ji-woo burst into the briefing room, his face pale. We have a problem. Lord Vaymar's fleet just entered the system. 15 warships, full combat readiness. Ilara went still. He is not supposed to be here. The summit is on neutral ground. He is claiming emergency authority. Says there is evidence that the Taurans are planning a major attack. Ji-woo's hands shook as he pulled up the data. He wants to secure the station. For everyone's protection. He wants to finish what the assassin started, Somi said grimly. And blame it on the Taurans. Do-hyun's mind raced through possibilities. 15 warships against a lightly defended space station. No human fleet in range. The Taurans had ships, but any move they made would look like the attack Vaymar was warning about. They were trapped. We need to get the evidence out, Unji said. Everything we have on Vaymar. His connections to the assassination. If we can prove. Prove what? To whom? Ilara's voice was bitter. My uncle controls half the imperial court. By the time any investigation reaches him, the station will be destroyed, and everyone on it will be dead. Then we fight. Do-hyun said quietly. Everyone looked at him. We know his plan. We know when he is coming, and we have something he does not expect. Do-hyun met Ilara's eyes. We have people willing to die for what is right. Not for politics or power. Just because it is right. Ilara stared at him. You would fight a fleet of warships with a squad of soldiers. I would fight anything that threatens the people I am sworn to protect. Do-hyun stood. The question is, are you with us? For a long moment, Ilara did not speak. Then, slowly, she smiled, not the careful diplomatic smile she wore like armor, but something real and fierce. I am with you, Sergeant Park, until the end. Outside, the first of Vaymar's ships began to descend toward the station. Lord Vaymar's forces moved with terrifying efficiency. Within 6 hours, they had taken control of every major system on Horizon Gate. Station security was overwhelmed. The Tauran delegation was confined to their quarters, and the human personnel were rounded up and held in cargo bays. But Do-hyun's team was not among them. They hid in the maintenance tunnels, moving through the station's guts like ghosts. Ji-woo had mapped every duct, every crawl space, every forgotten corridor. Ilara knew the Velari communication codes, allowing them to listen to enemy transmissions without being detected. And slowly, piece by piece, they watched the conspiracy reveal itself. "He is going to destroy the station," Ilara whispered, her face lit by the glow of Jiwoo's screen. "Make it look like a Toran attack. The war will restart, bigger than before, and my uncle will be the hero who warned everyone." "What about the summit delegates?" Yoonji asked. "The diplomats? The staff? The thousands of people on this station? Casualties of war." Ilara's voice was hollow. "Acceptable losses for a greater cause." Somi spat a curse in Korean. "And I thought human politicians were bad." They moved deeper into the station, heading for the communications center. If they could get a message out, broadcast the evidence to the galaxy, Veymar's plan would collapse. But the center was heavily guarded, and they were 5 people against an army. "We need a distraction," Do-hyun said. "Something big enough to pull guards away from the comm center." "The reactor," Jiwoo said slowly. "If we trigger a false alarm, make them think the station is about to explode, Veymar will have to respond. He needs the station intact for his plan to work. Can you do it? Give me 20 minutes and access to an engineering panel." They found what they needed on the station's lower levels. Jiwoo worked quickly, his fingers flying over keyboards and connection points. The rest of them stood guard, weapons ready, listening to distant footsteps and shouted orders. Ilara stood beside Do-hyun, her borrowed human pistol looking strange in her elegant hands. She had never fired a weapon before this week. Now she handled it like she had been born to it. "I owe you an apology," she said quietly. Do-hyun glanced at her. "For what? When we first met, I thought humans were children. Young, foolish, too emotional to be taken seriously." She smiled bitterly. "I was the fool. We are all fools sometimes. No, listen to me." She turned to face him fully. "In 400 years, I have met thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds. Diplomats, warriors, scholars, kings. None of them would be here now. None of them would risk everything for people they barely know, with no hope of survival. None of them. We have hope," Do-hyun said. "You have stubbornness. It is not the same thing. For humans it is." She laughed softly, then grew serious again. "If we do not survive this, I want you to know the Veltheron was never a burden to me. It was a gift. The first real thing I have experienced in centuries." Do-hyun did not know how to respond. He had spent his whole life avoiding deep connections, telling himself that soldiers could not afford them. But standing here, in the dark, with death closing in from all sides, he realized that had been its own kind of cowardice. "We will survive," he said. "And when we do, you can tell me more about these gifts." Before Ilara could respond, Jiwoo called out, "It is done. The alarm will trigger in 5 minutes. We need to move." They ran. The station's corridors were chaos. Alarms wailed. Soldiers rushed past them without looking, focused on the reactor emergency. Do-hyun led his team through the confusion, using the panic as cover. They reached the communications center just as the guards began to return. Somi dropped 2 of them with precise shots. Unji grabbed a wounded guard's weapon and covered the corridor. Jiwoo dove for the central console. "I need time," he said, his voice tight. "The system is locked down. Military encryption. How much time?" "More than we have." Do-hyun heard boots pounding down the corridor. "A lot of boots." "Somi?" Unji, hold the door. "Ilara, help Jiwoo with the encryption. I will buy us some time." "Do-hyun," Ilara started. "That is an order, princess." He ran toward the approaching soldiers before she could argue. The fight was brutal and short. Do-hyun was good, but he was 1 man against a dozen. He took down 4 of them before a stun blast caught his side. He kept fighting. Another blast hit his leg. He fell, rolled, came up shooting. A Velari soldier struck him across the face with a rifle butt. He tasted blood. The world spun. Then a voice cut through the chaos. A voice that echoed through every speaker on the station. Citizens of Horizon Gate. This is Princess Ilara of the Valari Empire. What you are about to hear is the truth about Lord Vaymar and his conspiracy against peace. Jiwoo had done it. The broadcast was going out. Do-hyun heard Ilara's voice continue, calm and clear, laying out every piece of evidence they had gathered. The assassination plot, the fake emergency, the plan to destroy the station and restart the war. She named names, gave dates, revealed secrets that had been buried for years. The soldiers around Do-hyun hesitated. They had been told they were protecting the empire. Now they were hearing that they were pawns in a traitor's game. One soldier lowered his weapon. Then another. Then more, but not all of them. A commander screamed orders, trying to rally his men. Some obeyed, turning toward the communications center. Do-hyun tried to rise, tried to stop them, but his body would not cooperate. He heard gunfire. He heard Somi yelling. He heard Yoonji's calm voice calling out targets. And then he heard something else. A deep rumble that shook the station to its core. Human warships. 3 of them, emerging from hyperspace close enough to make the station's sensors scream. The cavalry had arrived. Later, Do-hyun would learn that Jiwoo had included a distress signal in the broadcast, using emergency codes that only human military could recognize. Later, he would learn that the coalition had been watching the situation, waiting for evidence before acting. But in that moment, all he knew was that the soldiers around him were surrendering, that the gunfire was stopping, and that somehow, impossibly, they had won. He let his head fall back against the cold floor and laughed. Above him, Ilara's voice continued to echo through the station, speaking truth to power, changing history with every word. The arrival of human warships should have ended everything. It did not. Lord Vaymar was not a man who accepted defeat. When his soldiers began to surrender, when the truth spread through the station like wildfire, he gathered his most loyal followers and retreated to the central command tower. He still controlled the station's defense systems. He still had hostages, and he still had one weapon that no one had expected. He has activated the Void Lance, Ilara said, her face pale as she read the tactical display. An old weapon, from the First War. It can tear a hole in space itself. If he fires it at the human ships, they will die. Do-hyun finished grimly. His body ached from the beating he had taken, but he refused to rest. Not while people were in danger. How do we stop it? Somi asked. The lance requires a charge cycle, 90 minutes before it can fire. We have that long to reach the command tower and shut it down. 90 minutes, against a fortified position filled with elite soldiers loyal to a madman. Do-hyun looked at his team. Somi was wounded, blood seeping through a bandage on her arm. Jiwoo could barely stand. Eunji was running low on medical supplies. They had been fighting for hours without rest. And then, there was Ilara. She had never trained for combat, never served as a soldier, but her eyes held the same determination he saw in his team. We cannot do this alone, Eunji said quietly. We need help. The help came from an unexpected source. General Toruk of the Toran Confederacy had been imprisoned with his delegation. When Ilara's broadcast revealed the truth, his guards had vanished, called away to deal with more urgent matters. Now he stood before them in the cargo bay, 4 arms crossed, his gray face unreadable. You are telling me, he said slowly, that a Valari princess and a handful of humans want my help attacking a Valari warlord. I am telling you that Lord Vaymar tried to start a war that would have killed millions of your people, Ilara replied. I am offering you the chance to help stop him. Toruk studied her for a long moment. Then he laughed a deep, rumbling sound that seemed to shake the walls. I have hated Valari my entire life. My father died fighting your kind. My son lost his arm in the Kethrin campaign. He shook his head. But you, princess, are different, and these humans are either very brave or very stupid. Little of both, Somi muttered. We do not have time for this, Do-hyun said. Are you with us? Or not? Toruk extended one of his 4 hands. Show me where to fight. They moved through the station as a strange alliance humans, 1 Valari princess, and a squad of Toran warriors. They fought through checkpoints and ambushes, taking casualties, pushing forward anyway. Jiwoo stayed behind at a security station, guiding them through the safest routes. Eunji worked miracles with limited supplies, keeping wounded fighters moving. The command tower loomed before them, its doors sealed and guarded. 45 minutes, Ilara said. The lance is halfway charged. The door exploded inward. Not from their weapons, but from inside. Weimar had sent his best soldiers out to stop them. The battle was chaos. Do-hyun fought beside Toruk, the massive Toran using his 4 arms to devastating effect. Somi covered them with precise fire. Her wounded arm forgotten. Valari soldiers fell, but more kept coming. They pushed into the tower, step by bloody step. 30 minutes, someone called out. They reached the command center. The door was sealed with heavy locks, designed to withstand assault for hours. They did not have hours. I can open it, Ilara said. The locks respond to royal blood, but I need time. We will give you time, Do-hyun said. The final wave hit them like a storm. Weimar's elite guard, the best soldiers the Valari Empire had to offer. They were faster, stronger, better equipped than anything Do-hyun had faced before. Toruk went down first, 3 wounds in his chest. He kept fighting from the floor, roaring defiance. 2 of the Toran warriors died defending their general. Somi took a blade to the leg and collapsed against a wall, still firing, still cursing. Eunji pulled her to cover, hands red with blood, and Do-hyun stood alone before the door, holding back the tide. He did not know how long he fought. Time lost meaning. There was only the next enemy, the next strike, the next breath. His body moved without thought, drawing on training and instinct and something deeper, a refusal to fall while people depended on him. Done, Ilara shouted. The door slid open. Do-hyun turned to run through, and saw Lord Weimar standing inside, a weapon pointed at his niece. Enough, Weimar said. His voice was calm, almost bored. He was tall even for a Valari. His silver hair streaked with black, his face hard and cruel. You have caused me considerable trouble, Ilara. All for what? These animals? These short-lived creatures? Who will be dust before you celebrate another century? They are better than you will ever be. Ilara said. They are insects. And you have betrayed your own kind for them. Weimar's finger tightened on the weapon. The lance fires in 10 minutes. Nothing you do can stop it. But I will give you one chance, niece. One chance to remember who you are. Come with me. Help me rebuild what you have broken, and I will let your pets live. Ilara's eyes met Do-hyun's. He saw fear there, and doubt, and something else. Something fierce. I know exactly who I am, she said. She moved. Do-hyun moved. Weimar fired. The blast hit Ilara in the chest as she threw herself between the weapon and Do-hyun. She fell, silver blood spreading across the floor, and Do-hyun caught her before she hit the ground. Time stopped. Do-hyun held her in his arms, feeling her blood soak through his uniform. Her eyes were open, looking up at him, and her lips moved in a silent whisper. Then Toruk roared, and Somi fired, and the world exploded back into motion. Weimar fell, struck by a dozen weapons at once. But Do-hyun did not see it. He only saw Ilara, dying in his arms, her silver skin growing pale. No, he said. No, no, no. You do not get to do this. You do not get to save me. She smiled weakly. The Veltharon is fulfilled. We are equal now. I do not care about the debt. I care about you. Stay with me. Ilara, stay with me. Her hand found his, her grip weak but determined. Worth it, she whispered. You were. Worth it. Her eyes closed. Unji, Do-hyun screamed. Unji. The medic ran toward them, supplies in hand. Somewhere in the background, someone was disabling the void lance. Somewhere, the battle was ending, but all Do-hyun knew was the woman in his arms, and the desperate prayer that it was not too late. The peace summit resumed, this time with new urgency. Lord Vaymar's conspiracy had shocked both empires to their core. The Valari were horrified that one of their own had nearly started a genocide. The Taurans were forced to acknowledge that their enemies had risked everything to stop him. General Toruk became the unlikely champion of peace. He stood before the combined delegations and spoke of fighting beside humans and a Valari princess. Of courage that transcended species. He spoke of a human sergeant who held a door alone against impossible odds, and a princess who took a blast meant for him. I have hated all my life, Toruk said. Hatred is easy. It requires nothing but memory of past wounds. But I have seen something else on this station. I have seen sacrifice. I have seen honor. I have seen people choose to die for strangers because it was right. He paused. If such beings exist, then perhaps peace is possible after all. The treaty was signed 3 days later, but Do-hyun did not attend the ceremony. He spent those days in the medical bay. Waiting, Ilara had nearly died. The blast had torn through her chest, damaging organs that human doctors had never seen. But Valari were resilient, and Yunji worked alongside their healers with desperate determination. On the 4th day, Ilara opened her eyes. Do-hyun was there, sitting beside her bed as he had for hours. He looked terrible, unshaven, exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. But when she woke, his face transformed with relief so profound it was almost painful. You are an idiot, he said. His voice was rough. A complete, absolute idiot. Ilara smiled weakly. I learned from the best. You could have died. So could you. So could all of us. She reached for his hand, and he took it without hesitation. But we did not. We won. You jumped in front of that weapon for me. You jumped in front of a blade for me. Consider us even. Do-hyun shook his head. No, we are not even. We will never be even. Because I am not letting you do anything that stupid, ever again. Is that an order, Sergeant? Yes, Ilara laughed, then winced at the pain in her chest. Watch me. They sat together in comfortable silence. Outside, the station was returning to normal. Ships came and went. Diplomats negotiated and celebrated. The galaxy slowly absorbed the news of peace between two ancient enemies. None of it seemed real to Do-hyun. What seemed real was the woman holding his hand, alive against all odds. 2 weeks later, Ilara stood before the Valari High Council. She had recovered enough to travel, though she still moved carefully. Do-hyun stood behind her, along with Somi, Jiwoo, and Unji, all of them healed, all of them watching nervously. The Veltharan is fulfilled, Ilara announced to the council. I saved the life of Sergeant Park Do-hyun, as he saved mine. Our debts are settled. We are free. The council members nodded gravely. This was proper. This was tradition. However, Ilara continued, I wish to make another announcement. The council stirred with surprise. I have requested appointment as permanent ambassador to Earth. I believe our people have much to learn from humanity, not their technology, which is primitive by our standards, but their spirit, their courage, their stubborn refusal to accept fate. She paused. I have experienced this spirit firsthand. I believe it can help us become better than we are. The council debated for hours, but in the end, they agreed. The princess who had exposed a traitor and helped save the peace summit had earned the right to choose her own path. That evening, Do-hyun found Ilara on the observation deck, where they had talked so many times before. She was looking at the stars, her silver hair catching the light. "Earth," he said, standing beside her. "You have never even been there." "I know. I hear it is loud and chaotic, and nothing like the Valari worlds." "It is all of those things." She turned to look at him. In the starlight, her eyes were deep and dark, and full of something he was only beginning to understand. "I also hear," she said softly, "that it has oceans. I have never seen an ocean." Do-hyun thought about the sea in Busan, the one he had not seen in 7 years. He thought about showing it to her. The waves, the salt air, the endless blue stretching to the horizon. "I could show you," he said. "If you want. I would like that." They stood together, watching the stars. The station hummed around them, full of diplomats and soldiers and beings from 100 worlds. But in this moment, there was only the two of them. "The Veltharan is fulfilled," Ilara said. "I am no longer bound to you. I know. So whatever happens next, it is not because of tradition, not because of debt." She took his hand. "It is a choice." Do-hyun looked at her, this ancient princess who had sacrificed everything for people she barely knew, who had learned to laugh and fight and hope beside a squad of stubborn humans. "I choose to stay," she said. He thought about all the reasons it was impossible. Their different lifespans, their different worlds, the complications and politics and challenges that would never truly end. Then he thought about the moment he first jumped in front of a blade for her. He had not calculated the odds. He had not weighed the consequences. He had simply acted because it was right. Maybe this was the same. "Okay," he said. She raised an eyebrow. "Okay? Yeah, okay." He squeezed her hand. "Let us see what happens." A shuttle was waiting to take them to Earth. The team was already aboard Somi, complaining about the cramped seats. Jiwoo updating his files. Eunji checking her supplies for the 100th time. Do-hyun and Ilara walked toward it together. Behind them, the peace summit was ending. Two empires that had fought for centuries were learning to trust each other. The galaxy was changing in ways no one could have predicted, and it had started with one human soldier who jumped in front of a blade meant for someone else. The shuttle doors closed. The engines hummed to life. "Ready?" Do-hyun asked. Ilara looked at him, this short-lived, stubborn, impossible human who had changed everything. "Ready," she said. The shuttle lifted off, carrying them toward Earth, toward oceans and chaos and whatever came next. Some debts, they were both learning, could never truly be repaid, and some bonds were stronger than any tradition could explain.